you've been at the forefront of strategic litigation in the US. And recently, you've been actively supporting efforts to use the US Tariff Act to address forced labor and supply chains. Perhaps you could talk us through, what are the opportunities and what the future holds for strategic litigation against corporations in the US, and how you see various corporate accountability mechanisms factoring into that.
So strategic litigation in the federal courts is booming from my perspective. When we did the initial strategic litigation meeting in London years ago, we struggled to find lawyers who were handling these cases. We just had our most recent strategic litigation meeting in Washington, D.C., virtually, of course, and we had close to 40 lawyers at the meeting, people who were actively engaged in this work. So I think the bench is now much broader, the lawyers are much more sophisticated, and the case law has been built. So there's tremendous opportunity in the federal courts. But beyond that, the Tariff Act, which really only became a viable tool in 2016 when the law was amended, is now being used by advocates to prevent the importation of goods made with forced labor from entering the US market. And that Tariff Act prohibition on the importation of forced labor-made goods is spreading across the globe. We're hoping to have a sort of global Tariff Act, if you will, so that there can be no safe harbor for goods made with forced labor. Already we're seeing Canada adopting a Tariff Act-like law. Mexico is doing the same. There are conversations in Australia. And the power of the Tariff Act, again, in sort of collaboration with the strategic litigation in the federal courts, but the power of the Tariff Act is that it is quick and there are very low barriers to entry. So anyone, including non-governmental organizations, including trafficking survivors, including advocates, anyone can put a petition into Customs and Border Protection of the US government. And then Customs and Border Protection can issue what's called a withhold release order to ban the importation of those goods from entering the market. It is remarkable to see the response that corporations have given to this law because it has hit them at the bottom line, not 2 years after the litigation starts, not 3 years, not 15 years after the litigation starts, sometimes just months after a petition is filed. And most recently, the US government has not only banned the entry of rubber gloves from Malaysia, they have also seized 2 enormous shipments of rubber gloves from Malaysia, brought in by Top Glove in violation of the import prohibition. The first set of gloves seized, they were worth $518,000. The second shipments of gloves seized were worth $690,000. Again, these are really significant numbers. In addition, the US government is now beginning to enforce fines. So one company that brought in stevia, an artificial sweetener, from China was fined $575,000 by the US government for bringing those goods into the United States in violation of the import ban. So we have tremendous optimism, again, that, as Archana said, petitioners around the globe are interested in filing petitions to block goods from entering these markets, but also that the Tariff Act concept is spreading. We've even seen a petition filed in the United Kingdom using an ancient law that's a little bit like the Tariff Act that prohibits importation of goods made with prison labor. So the Tariff Act also has enormous potential for us.
Yeah, I'm always impatient for progress, but it's a nice reminder of just how far things have come in the last 5 years. I remember that convening and how we were scrambling to find lawyers who were sufficiently engaged and interested. And it's also exciting to hear, the prospects looking forward.